Hi and welcome to Schmooze with Suze. I'm Suze Montgomery, your host, and boy, if I can get through this thing without crying, this will be a miracle in itself, believe me. I think certain people are brought to you at certain times in your life for maybe your spiritual growth, maybe your emotional growth, maybe just to hold your hand and get you through. And I think Roger Thompson, our guest today, is one of those people. I think Roger is probably brought to me for all of those and probably a lot more reasons. Roger, I got to know Roger. I probably knew Roger somewhere else, but not in that sense. Roger, I want to have him tell his story, but Roger told the story of a book that he just wrote. It's called My Best Friend's Funeral. And it's about a local kid here growing up in town and Roger's relationship with him. And almost anybody that knows anything about Ventura history or growing up here would recognize the name of Tim Garrity.
That's right.
So tell me about Timmy and tell me about you. I read the book when I was on vacation.
Right.
I read the whole book.
Well, Tim, well, first, thanks for having me here. This is
it's my honor. Thank you.
Well, Tim and I met each other in junior high, actually, in Kappa, and so we quickly became best friends at that time, and really grew up through all the phases of life together, including, obviously the traumatic teens and all that, to getting married, having kids, starting businesses together. We really experienced all aspects of life together. We opened, when we were in our 20s, young 20s, we opened up Skate Street, which was an internationally known skate park, and so we had that kind of fabulous ride together. And it just was a complete partnership, really, in all aspects of life, from 13 years old to 33 when he passed away. It was quite remarkable.
You're both natives. You both were born and raised in Ventura?
I was born here. Tim came here early.
Okay.
I always held that above him. I was a little more local than he was. But yeah, we both grew up here in Ventura. I was born, raised this, Tim, I can't remember what age specifically he came, but went to school here, and yeah, we went to Kappa, Buena, the whole thing.
I enjoyed reading parts of Tim that I never knew when he was younger. I met Tim when he was maybe midway through high school. He was working at the Pierpont Racket Club, where I met Tim, and I would walk in, was one of the first of the early crew to work out.
Okay.
And so that meant the club opened at 5 or 5:30 in the morning, and I was on the first shift. I came in there to work out. And Tim was always bloodshot eyes, bleary-eyed, because he was working so much, and he was trying to juggle so many aspects of his life. Tim was always working to me. That's how I remember him best. But when you were kids in school, now you both had kind of interesting childhoods, very similar, very challenging childhoods, which was really a tough way to grow up, and maybe that's one of the bonds that forged you?
I certainly think, Tim was really the first friend I had, because we had moved around a lot when I was a kid, and my dad passed away when I was 13, and right after my dad passed away is when I met Tim. We'd moved back to an area of town where I went to, when I started going to school, back to school at Kappa. And so, being that age, that's already an awkward time in life anyways, than to have your dad just pass away.
That's traumatic, Raj.
Yeah, it really was.
I mean, that could really change you either way. You could, most times it would go, negative.
I was right on the kind of the knife edge of going either way, and that's when I met Tim, and I expressed in the book a little bit better, but basically he kind of plucked me off of one path towards darkness and put me on another path towards light.
How did he know to do that?
I don't know. He just had this thing in him that he just knew, and most people, including yourself, who encounter him, kind of express some similar version of that. Yeah. And so, but even at that young age, I mean, I don't know that at that time it was something he knew as a skill or a gift, and he was just being himself. But he really did kind of help set a new course for me. And I think because of the time we met, the urgency of life at that time for me, we just created a fast bond that just went deep, fast, and and kind of played out that way. It was just remarkable.
It's interesting when I watch the progression of the book from when you're young and you go through your challenging teenage years, roller skating through the quad of the high school, and watching you both start to change, and I mean questioning yourselves too.
Right.
You more so than Tim.
Mm-hmm.
Tim always had this sense of, you said urgency, but he also had this sense of purpose. Tim always was older than he was, to me.
Right.
I mean, he was oftentimes, and he had the ability to be able to get inside your head or read you really well. He was really good at analyzing and reading people, and could do that almost instantly. And it's almost like he could read your soul. And I think he was there for so many people, and his life was so short. But he was, you know, and I keep asking myself, because I told you I talked to Tim. I talk to Tim still. It's kind of like, why were you plucked away at 33? Why, you know, what was, and I keep asking those questions, but there's no answer to that.
No.
But he was so different. The two of you forged this bond, and reading it in your book, which I urge everybody, please read this book. It's about a friendship, and it's about a friendship of men, which is really unusual, and because men don't usually forge these kind of, women do.
Right.
We're much more needy. You guys aren't so needy. But women seem to, it's an easiness, but yours was an easiness, and he almost embraced you and took you under his wing and shepherded you through times, and you in turn did the same for him.
That's right. Yeah.
It's hard. I can't explain this. And I'm doing a poor job of explaining how poignant this was.
Right.
And how deep this friendship was, and about how you relied on each other, and just, you know, you had this special bond. I don't know how to describe this.
Well, I think you said earlier that he had this sense of purpose about him. I think that's true. And if you talk to his parents, they'll say that was from even a much younger age than I knew him. He just was born with this sense of purpose and this confidence of what that purpose was. So it was easy to kind of stand behind him, and he was like a rock in so many people's lives. And so he just knew that about himself. Yeah, I'm not sure that he would have, again, articulated it that way at the time, but he didn't. He just knew that there was something. He had a call for people.
He did.
Yeah, and then as he grows, you know, then as our friendship grows, then of course, you know, I was able to do some things for him, perhaps, that allowed him to do some of that for others, because, you know, some people like that don't get a chance to, you know, they're so busy serving other people, they don't often take the time to be served themselves. And so in our relationship, I think that was something that we both try to do for one another, and really kind of helped both of us to kind of reach our potential in ways that perhaps we wouldn't have on our own.
How'd you even come up with skates?
As kids growing up in town here, you know, we grew up surfing and skating, so just kind of a love for board culture, and gosh, we had a clothing company that we started when we were in college. Down at the harbor, we had a little cart.
I remember this.
Yeah.
You made out of PVC pipe.
Oh,
was
basically,
it?
Yeah.
It was really rickety.
Oh, it was really rigged. Yeah. And so we made this little cart. We pushed around the harbor, and just had a blast doing it. And then we eventually went to a little space there, had a little surf shop, and so. We started, once the business started building, then we both were starting to dream of skateboards. At the time, there was a lot of press about kids getting in trouble for skateboarding. Skateboarding was becoming more and more popular. There wasn't places for them to do this. This was before the skate parks.
Isn't that, when you look back at that, you have to laugh at that, because I mean, it's such a culture now.
Oh, right.
So you were pioneers.
Oh, absolutely.
You gave it legitimacy where there wasn't any.
That's right. Yeah, we were the first to do something on this scale. At the time, it was the largest indoor skate park in the world. It was remarkable. Yeah, it was. You know, people flew from all over, and it was actually just, you know, right here in Ventura. And
hard to believe. I mean, you were like mini icons to all these kids. I mean, you really had, you know, that sense of. But you had a business sense as well. Both of you had a good feel for the business.
Yeah, we both did. We connected on that really early on, because before even the businesses, we were in a band together, and we just kind of had this sense of how to build the band, and there's a business behind the band to have any type of success, and, you know, doing, you know, tours and getting all the gigs and all that stuff. There was part of that. Tim ran what led to the clothing company is Tim did all the clothing for the band. He created all the merchandise for it, and, you know, at that time we were in high school, and so we were already doing business together in high school, and just kind of grew from there. But he had this incredible work ethic to an imagination to pull it all together.
He was driven.
He really was, yeah.
I mean, he was really driven to succeed. I often think back at that. You know, after reading the book, I put the book down and I sat there and thought to myself, did he have a sense that he was on a timeline almost? You know, because he was so driven to do so much so early, and he had so many gifts.
Yeah, who knows if that's a special sense you have, but he did have a sense of urgency. That's for sure. And we really tried to squeeze a lot out of life. You know, the life that at the time you obviously you don't know it's going to get cut short, but there was a sense of urgency to squeeze the most out of every day, to give the most of yourself, to do the best you can.
And to give back.
Mm-hmm.
That was the thing about both of you. Throughout the book, the underlying thread was to give back, and it was to do more, but to give back in different ways.
Yeah, we definitely both, again, at an early age, I think we recognized that we had this deep sense of calling together, that there was something together that was going to happen as a result of our friendship that was going to impact a generation of people. And we would be up till all hours of the night trying to get ready for things. You know, the reason he was so bloodshot eyes in the club in the morning is because we were up till 2 o'clock the night before working on something. It's just part of who we were. We were at our best when we were serving and building and going after a big vision together.
You're dreamers, but you were also very practical in the realistic sense, where you both had a good business sense.
Yeah.
Which was unusual for kids at that age.
Right. Yeah, we opened the skate park when we were 24 years old.
That's insane, right there.
Yeah.
I mean, 24-year-olds. I mean, you don't even know. You know, you can barely drive to the grocery store.
Right.
But you did this monster project.
Yeah. Yeah, people would come, and they'd be looking for the adults in the room, and it was just me and Tim.
It's like, where's your parents,
That's right?
And it was both of you.
Uh-huh.
It's the thread that runs through this also is family dynamics, because you grew up in a challenge household, and so did Tim. I mean, you both had this parallel type of family dynamic going on, and looking at that. And I think that may be part of the bond that you both forged, because you were each other's parents,
right,
to a certain degree.
Yeah, there's a chapter that didn't make it into the book. It got cut, but it's called Male Bonding. But he and I did a project together as sophomores in high school, and it was about the dynamic of our families and how males bond together. It was really quite extraordinary. My mom saved the paper all those years. So,
no kidding.
But it was, I remember writing it at his dad's bar in his house, and we were doing this report together on the importance of male friendship. And it came out of this sense, I think, because we both had challenge situations with our dads. Mine passed away from addiction. His was an addict who ultimately recovered. But at that time, we were kind of, fathering ourselves. You know, I was a dad to him in some ways. He was a dad to me.
Yeah, that's what I got. I got that sense out of the book, which is, again, why you should, this growth together at the same time in parallel lives. And Tim, it's hard to describe Tim to anybody. I mean, you know him better than probably anybody on the planet, outside of Mickey, his wife. And Tim was just unusual. He had this light about him.
Right.
I don't know how to describe this. I mean, you knew when you were talking to somebody that was just otherworldly. I don't know how to describe that.
It's hard. I mean, I spent 70,000 words trying to figure out a way to describe it, and I still don't feel like I did an adequate job of it.
You did a fantastic job. I told you before we started cameras, and what this book was important for me to read because it was you and it was Tim, but it was also important for me to so I could really reconnect with Tim on a certain level. And reading this, there was many a day that I put it down and I couldn't read it anymore.
Right.
I mean, I had to walk away. It was just too tough to read.
Right.
I remember when he met Mickey, met her at the club, at the Pierpont. Mickey was really, she's special. I think, she dated my son for a while. But Mickey and Tim were meant to be together.
Yeah.
And she is still a very unusual woman. She's just beautiful inside and out.
Oh, absolutely, she is.
She's a gem. And I remember when he met her, and he was so excited. He said, "You gotta meet her. You gotta meet her."
Right.
I go, and I said, "I already know her. She's working at the cafe."
Right.
And they just connected. Now, it's not to say that they didn't have issues going on. Everybody does. And they had tough times too, but they were meant to be as well. And then you, in your dating life, when you met Melissa, and the way you described meeting Melissa, she was unreachable, huh?
Right. Yeah, I tell people I don't think that I could have pulled that off my own. It really needed Tim to help me pull that
Crank
together.
me up.
Yeah.
So.
And I think that was true. It was just, yeah, he really kind of intervened in my love life in a way that that I think I would just screwed it all up on my own, you know.
I don't know. You probably would have found her, but probably later, you know.
Right.
But he knew she was the right one for you.
Yeah, right from the very beginning. But she lost a mom at a young age, and she really, similar to a lot of the things I loved about Tim, I found in her too. She, you know, put herself through school. She worked super hard. She was brilliant in so many. I mean, she is brilliant in so many ways. But there was a lot. I think that those are things that Tim saw in her as well, because obviously he met her first and said, "No, this is the right one for Roger." And he was very clear with me about that. Like, this is the one. Like, don't mess this up.
Is she a teacher? She's a teacher?
She's substitute teaching.
Okay.
And so she, here in town, just yesterday she was subbing at Cabrillo in my son's class. So she's, you know, half the time subbing, and then she reps my mom. My mom's an artist, so she manages my mom's art career. And then of course she's trying to balance all that and being a mom as well.
That's a pretty heavy juggling, you know, juggling a schedule like that.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you are fly fishing? And
Fly
what are you
fishing
doing
and
these days?
Yeah. Yeah, when I'm not ready,
you need to write more, by the way.
I am. I've got a second book coming.
Excellent.
And then when I'm not writing, I'm actually working in Haiti, of all places, designing a little boutique resort there, kind of what we call a voluntourism resort, but it's a place for people to come who want to help that country. And we structure it in an interesting way, so people will come and stay at our place, and we'll kind of curate their experience in the country. So I've spent, gosh, you know, I'm down there quarterly. I spend about half my time designing and building.
Why'd you pick Haiti?
You know, it kind of picked me in a lot of ways. Another close friend of mine, he was started an orphanage there, and in the early stages, as they were building, he kind of reached out to me. I was on their board for a while. This was pre-earthquake and all that, but I'd never had any experience like that, where you kind of judge everything based on your own life experience. And you know, the first time I went down there and just saw the devastation, saw the need, it just kind of grabbed my heart in a way that just wouldn't let go. And so I just, similar to the writing, I couldn't stop, and it wouldn't let go of me. So what we found with doing 10 years now of orphan care is that the systemic issue for a country like that is poverty. Women are, you know, generally want to keep their babies, but if they can't feed them, they'll give them away. And so we started trying to find work for women, and we're finding tremendous success whenever we can find a job that the success rate of their families goes up. So we just looked at what can we do to create the most amount of jobs as possible.
How do you do that?
Yeah, it's really hard.
I mean, especially when you have that kind of an economy.
Yeah, no, it's all, you know, we're marketing it to, you know, they can't do it them, you know, the people aren't going to come from Haiti to stay in Haiti, so it's all U.S. coming in. We work with a lot of churches that will send people down on trips. Individuals, families like my own, who might be motivated to go down with their kids. And so we're still I'm about 30% into the construction of it, so we still have a long ways to go. But we'll be open probably about summer 2017 is when we're planning to open this thing.
Boy, you are dedicated to do this.
Oh yeah.
This is a nonprofit agency.
It's a nonprofit called Hands and Feet. But yeah, it's a very close friend of mine. We're kind of partnering in this effort with with this side of it. Like I said, we've been engaged in the orphan care piece now for about 10 years there. But we really feel like this is an orphan prevention strategy.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Nonprofits to me have a special place in my heart too. That's what I do, a lot of nonprofit work.
That's right.
Because that's really reaches the people. I mean, I just get upset when I watch TV and watch, you know, like I was talking about our previous guest, about all the profit and the fear and the, you know, keeping this whole cycle going. And that's not real. I mean, it's manufactured. It's not news. It's entertainment. And it's manufactured at that. So I'm very jaded about how I look at, you know, the world situation too. But nonprofits actually get in there and dig in and actually do work.
Right. Well, in Haiti, and I'm sure this is true in other countries too, but the entire social fabric is made up by nonprofit work. If those went away, then that country would fall apart.
Nothing.
Yeah.
There's no economy, is there?
There's no economy.
I mean,
no.
what is their economy?
There really isn't one. There's
it
some.
Was tourism, but that's gone probably.
That's gone away. So now there's subsistence living. People have little farms, but there's really not much. And Port-au-Prince are doing some rebuilding. That's all outside investment coming in, government investing coming in, try to rebuild. So they create some jobs that way. But there's no natural kind of economy there.
So this is what you're doing these days?
Yeah.
And writing?
So I spend half my time writing, half my time working on this Haiti project.
You are dedicated, Raj. Upon reading this too, again, there was so much heart that I was reading in here, and so much, it's you. I mean, you poured your soul into this book. You just, I mean, you didn't hold back at all. No,
I discovered something through the writing. I'd never written anything before. This was the first thing I'd ever written. And so I didn't really, every day was, I was petrified every day of the blank page, and I just discovered this little prayer where I said, just, Lord, give me something true to write today, just something true. And so whatever I happened to be doing, I just tried to get to the truth of whatever that was, and I wouldn't stop until I could look at the page and go, that's true. That's how I feel about that, or that's how I see that.
So that wasn't really you writing, huh?
Yeah, I guess not. Yeah, which turned out much better that way, I think.
Yeah. When you let go and stop driving the car, when you sit in the back seat?
That's right.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, as a former control person, I totally understand that. It's almost like surrender. And I think that's another one of those life lessons that you have to learn.
Sure, and and when I started to realize what this was turning into, I was like, this is really probably my best shot to honor the friendship I had with Tim, to do something in print that will last, that for generations people will be able to read his story and know something of him. So I just really obsessed about getting every word exactly right.
It's perfect.
And so that's what really motivated that whole thing.
I love the way you structured it as well. You start at the end and you worked in, and then you end up at the end again.
That's right, yeah.
Wow. What's your next subject?
I'm writing on the topic of manhood and fatherhood, but I'm doing a collection.
With your son? With your sons?
They're both going to be in it quite a bit, yeah. But I'm doing a series of road trip stories. So
how fun.
Oh, it's a lot of fun. A lot of fly fishing, a lot of surfing, a lot of travel. Life. Yeah, exactly.
What you know.
Yeah.
How you live.
Yep.
It's interesting that you're also friends with Woody.
That's right.
Who's another writer.
Oh, he's fabulous, and he's been such an encouragement to me. He's really come
Good
along.
Mentor.
Yeah, he really has been. So we spend quite a bit of time together, and he's, we'll feed ideas to one another, and yeah, he's going to be a great help, I think, on this next book too.
There's a lot of similarities between you and Woody, by the way. Have you both talked about that?
No, we haven't. But I don't know if you know, his book's coming out. His next book's coming out this next month. Yeah, yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
I am too. Yeah, I own the other book as well. You both write with heart. You write with deep insight, a sense of purpose and spirituality. I mean, how can you go wrong, right? Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for being my friend. You're very dear to me. I knew you immediately the first time I saw you. I knew your heart. Thanks for being here, everyone. Please do me a big favor. Do yourself a big favor. Go out and buy My Best Friend's Funeral by Roger Thompson. You'll be glad you did. Thanks for being here, sweetheart.
Thank you for having me.
And thanks for being here. We'll see you next week.
Wow, this video brings back a lot of memories. It's great to see the park the way that was. We were just kids when we got this call from Activision that they wanted to do this skate game with Tony Hawk. We had no idea at the time what that was. In fact, that technology had never even existed, and so they said they wanted to set him up in a half pipe and take all these videos of him. It's like, sure, let's do that, but we had no idea that motion capture technology was brand new at that time. And so they were looking for a place where they could put all these cameras stationary around the half pipe. They needed to be indoors in a controlled setting so the elements wouldn't mess up what they were doing. And what they were trying to do is all those little lycra balls on Tony represented data points, and they needed to create a wireframe around his body. And so by setting up all these cameras, they could take these different angles of him. And so he'd have to do each trip trick multiple times until I really got it down right. We were only 24 years old when we built Skate Street. You know, Tim and I walked in the building one day looking at each other as if this was some big dream. We just couldn't believe what an opportunity it was to do something like this. We were hanging out with people like Tony Hawk and the pros that we had looked up to our whole lives. And then to have Tony come and do motion capture and skate the way he did really just brought it home to us that we were a part of something really big. You know, some of it was being lucky enough to be at the right place at the right time, but some of it was providential too. I think there was a purpose in what we were doing with the skate park, something bigger than Tim and I, and Skate Street would go on to be known really across the country. In fact, we had a map of where everyone came from, and we had people from almost every continent on the globe, and certainly from every corner of the United States. It all came, it almost became like a pilgrimage of skateboarding for people to come and skate these parks. And of course, seeing it on the videos and in these kinds of video games, it just made it even that more of a legend. And so when I look at these videos, it's just a reminder of just how lucky we were at such a young age in life. And those were really some of the most magical years that Tim and I had ever.
Thank you.